Hi, I'm Joy, and today I want to open your eyes to a truth many people ignore. Nothing will get easier as long as you keep avoiding them. There's a silent trap that turns small tasks into giant ones. And with each day you put them off, the weight only grows. What could be simple becomes an unnecessary burden, and this saps your energy without you even realizing it. It's almost unfair. Running away seems like a relief, but deep down it exacts a heavy price. The paradox is that you spend more energy escaping than facing. And here's the detail that changes everything. When you act, the difficulty shrinks. When you wait, it multiplies. The reward doesn't come from waiting. It comes from action, even if imperfect. And if you want to continue breaking this cycle and transforming the way you face your challenges, subscribe to the channel right now. Here, you'll find content that not only teaches, but also inspires action. It'll be fun, straightforward, and will give you exactly the push you need to avoid falling into the avoidance trap. Have you ever noticed how a simple, "I'll do it later," can become a huge burden on your routine? At first, it seems small, almost irrelevant. But every time you choose to avoid it, you're planting a seed that grows too quickly. This postponement works like compound interest, only in reverse. Instead of bringing gains, it brings more difficulty. With each passing day, the task seems bigger, more complicated, and further away from being solved. When you decide not to tackle that English challenge today, for example, tomorrow it already seems a little more difficult. After a week, it's as if you've created a wall between you and what needs to be done. This feeling of blockage isn't born from any real inability, but from the invisible sum of all the procrastination. And here comes an interesting dynamic. What seemed scary turns out to be much simpler the moment you touch it. But while you don't touch it, your mind creates bigger and bigger stories. This is the next point I want to show you. How our imagination turns small things into monsters under the bed. When you avoid facing something, your mind doesn't just leave the void there, it fills it with stories, exaggerations, and distorted images. The English you've put off begins to take on a frightening form, as if it were an impossible obstacle. With each passing day, your imagination multiplies the size of the problem. It's not the English that has grown, it's the fear that has fed on the silence. This dynamic is similar to when, as a child, we imagined a monster hiding under the bed. It wasn't there, but our minds created details, glowing eyes, sharp claws, strange sounds. It's the same with English. The first lesson, the first conversation seem bigger than they are. But when you turn on the light, you realize that none of the things you feared exist. The curious thing is that 90% of this fear dissolves upon first contact. The simple act of opening a book, watching a short video, and repeating a few phrases out loud already shows that reality is less frightening than the story you created. The monster only exists until you get up to look. The first action is like opening the door and letting in the light. And it's amazing how this changes the game. When you face it, you discover that that difficult word wasn't impossible, that phrase only needed to be practiced once or twice. The magnitude of the problem was a figment of your imagination, not reality. And when your mind realizes this, it feels an immediate relief, as if a weight had been lifted off your shoulders. The point is, while you avoid it, the problem grows in the shadows. While you act, it shrinks before your eyes. It's as if courage is a spotlight, that reveals what's really happening without the exaggerations created by fear. This clarity is liberating because it gives you back control. But here comes an even deeper question. If fear dissolves upon first contact, why do so many people insist on running away? Because there's something even more insidious going on. The brain begins to learn this escape pattern and repeats it automatically. And that's what we're going to talk about now. When you repeatedly run away from something, your brain understands that this is the safest route. It's as if it creates an automatic pathway. At any sign of discomfort, the default response becomes avoidance. Over time, it's no longer you who decides. It's the habit of running away, like a conditioned reflex. This happens with English, with conversations, with any challenge. The problem is that this muscle memory of escape strengthens the more times you repeat the pattern. Each "not today," each "I'll see later" works like training. Only instead of training courage, you train fear. Your body responds before your reason does. Butterflies in your stomach, your mind makes excuses, and presto, you've fallen into the trap again. And breaking the cycle requires awareness. It's like realizing you're always taking the same shortcut, even when it leads nowhere. Change begins when you pause for a second and choose a different path. In the case of English, this might mean saying a short sentence out loud, even if it gets stuck. This micro-action interrupts the automatic pattern and opens space for a new reflex. Over time, the opposite also strengthens, the muscle memory of courage. Each time you face a situation, no matter how small, your brain learns that it's possible, that it's not dangerous, that you survived, and even felt good. Gradually, your body stops reacting with fear and starts responding naturally. It's training, but conscious training. This awareness is powerful because it shows that fear doesn't need to be eliminated all at once. It just needs to be reshaped through practice. If you speak one sentence today, tomorrow you'll speak two. If you read one page today, tomorrow you'll be able to read two more confidently. This is how the brain learns, repetition of small confrontations that replace escape. And this brings us to another layer of this story. Every time you run away, you accumulate not only muscle memory of fear, but also an emotional debt that keeps accumulating. This invisible debt is the next part you need to understand. Every time you put something off, it's like opening an account in an invisible bank. At first, it seems harmless, but this debt begins to take a heavy toll. Anxiety, guilt, a feeling of being behind. The English you put off until tomorrow didn't disappear. It just sat there, staring at you, silently accumulating pressure. This pressure grows and grows. The curious thing is that the more you avoid it, the higher the debt becomes. Your mind feels heavy, as if you have a list of outstanding debts chasing you, even though no one actually asks you to pay. And you know what's worse? There's no installment plan for this debt. You either pay it all at once, face it head on, or continue to be suffocated by the accumulation. Facing today, even with a small action, is like paying off the bill before the interest swallows you up. Doing a short lesson, reading a dialogue in English aloud, writing a simple sentence already reduces that internal pressure that keeps you awake at night. Each step is a payment that soothes your heart and clears your mental space for new achievements. I've experienced this buildup firsthand. Every time I avoided a project, it felt heavier than it actually was. The debt grew not because of the size of the task, but because of the time I'd let it sit. And the feeling of finally sitting down and starting was like breathing after a long time underwater, an immediate relief. It's important to realize that procrastinating isn't just a waste of time, it's a waste of energy. Your mind spends hours spinning what's been postponed, making excuses, planning escapes. Meanwhile, a simple action would have solved much of the pressure. Procrastination debt is costly because it robs you not only of your productivity, but also of your peace. And here arises a brutal contradiction. We spend more energy avoiding than we would facing by resolving. This is the paradox we need to explore in the next point: how running away consumes more than acting. Have you ever noticed how avoiding something seems to save energy, but in reality, it actually uses much more? You stop studying English because you find it tiring, but you spend the rest of the day thinking about it, making excuses, carrying an invisible weight. In the end, the effort of avoiding it was greater than if you had simply faced the task for 10 minutes. This is the paradox of avoidance. Your brain consumes fuel trying to hide what you know you need to do. It's an internal struggle, as if part of you is pushing forward and the other is pushing back. This constant friction drains your mental energy, leaving you more tired, stressed, and less productive. And the thing is, nothing gets resolved. When you face it, the expense is real, but limited. You sit down, study, say a few sentences, practice, and that's it. When you avoid it, the expense is silent and continuous. Your mind revisits the pending task 1,000 times throughout the day, like a notification that won't go away. This slow consumption is far more devastating than the concentrated effort to act. It's like carrying a heavy backpack without ever opening it to see what's inside. You walk around, hunched over, tired, feeling the weight, but when you open it, you discover it wasn't so heavy after all. And the feeling of lightness after facing it is so liberating that it makes you angry for having waited so long. Your body relaxes because it no longer needs to hold that tension. This paradox explains why so many people live exhausted, doing almost nothing. It's not the volume of work, it's the weight of escapes. Avoiding English, avoiding conversations, avoiding commitments, all of this creates an invisible drain that consumes much more than the action itself. Confronting releases energy, running away drains it endlessly. And this difference becomes even clearer when we look at the long-term effects. Small daily actions that the problem is that when you avoid, you do the opposite. You remain vulnerable. The fear remains acute, as if each situation were the first. You never develop antibodies because you haven't given your body the chance to develop a defense. The discomfort, instead of diminishing, perpetuates. And this vulnerability ends up fueling a dangerous mindset, waiting for the right moment to act, as if courage will one day appear on its own. This is the next point we need to unravel. Many people live as if they were in a waiting room. They sit, look at their watch, wait for someone to call their name, but their turn never comes. Deep down, it's the illusion that one day the perfect moment to start will appear, when they have more time, more confidence, more preparation. But the truth is that call never comes. The only time that exists is now. This "only when I'm ready" is a trap, because being ready isn't a prerequisite for action, it's a consequence of it. You only feel ready after you start, not before. Waiting for confidence to develop on its own is like waiting for muscles to grow without training. You're stuck in an imaginary chair, unaware that the door has always been open. The side effect of this waiting is devastating. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and you remain stuck, And the more time passes, the harder it seems to get up. The mind grows accustomed to inertia, and the waiting room becomes a comfortable prison. But what comforts you now turns into regret tomorrow. The only way out is to get up and walk even without being called. Open a book even without feeling confident. Send a message in English even when trembling. Speak a simple sentence out loud even when afraid of making a mistake. It is this initiative that breaks the logic of the waiting room and shows that the call will never come from outside. It must come from within. The funny thing is, when you take that first step, you realize that time was never the issue. What was missing was the problem is that when you avoid, you do the opposite. You remain vulnerable. The fear remains acute, as if each situation were the first. You never develop antibodies because you haven't given your body the chance to develop a defense. The discomfort, instead of diminishing, perpetuates. And this vulnerability ends up fueling a dangerous mindset, waiting for the right moment to act, as if courage will one day appear on its own. This is the next point we need to unravel. Many people live as if they were in a waiting room. They sit, look at their watch, wait for someone to call their name, but their turn never comes. Deep down, it's the illusion that one day the perfect moment to start will appear, when they have more time, more confidence, more preparation. But the truth is that call never comes. The only time that exists is now. This "only when I'm ready" is a trap, because being ready isn't a prerequisite for action, it's a consequence of it. You only feel ready after you start, not before. Waiting for confidence to develop on its own is like waiting for muscles to grow without training. You're stuck in an imaginary chair, unaware that the door has always been open. The side effect of this waiting is devastating. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and you remain stuck. And the more time passes, the harder it seems to get up. The mind grows accustomed to inertia, and the waiting room becomes a comfortable prison. But what comforts you now turns into regret tomorrow. The only way out is to get up and walk even without being called. Open a book even without feeling confident. Send a message. When you practice daily, this door remains light. You don't need to make a big effort to open it because it's never been locked. 5 minutes today makes 20 minutes easier tomorrow. But when you avoid it, the opposite happens. Minimal effort becomes gigantic, and simple effort becomes daunting. Friction is also emotional. With each day of inactivity, guilt, self-criticism, and the feeling of being behind grow. This creates even more resistance to starting over because now it's not just the task at hand, but the weight of everything you've allowed to accumulate. The mind transforms the restart into something much bigger than it really is. The only way to break this cycle is to minimize friction. Start small, without pressure, just to get back into the swing of things. Read a short sentence, listen to a quick audio recording, write a word. These micro steps are like oil in the gears that keep the wheel turning until the movement feels natural again. And every time you choose to act instead of avoid, you deposit courage in a place that will sustain you through the challenges ahead. It's like opening a trust account that grows with each step. This is the last point I want to make to you. Think of each act of courage as a deposit into a special account. Every time you face discomfort, instead of avoiding it, you deposit a few coins of trust there. At first, the balance may seem small, but over time, it grows and becomes an asset you can draw on when you need it most. This courage account is built through practice, one step at a time. When you run away, the effect is the opposite. It's like withdrawing from that account before it even has a balance. You find yourself bankrupt of confidence precisely when you need it. This lack of confrontation leaves you with no reserves for unexpected situations, like an impromptu conversation in English or an opportunity to showcase your skills. The most interesting thing is that the deposit doesn't need to be large. Saying a simple sentence, trying a short phone call, risking a short text, it's all valid. Each time you choose action over escape, you add something to your internal balance. Little by little, the account grows, and you feel like you can draw courage without fear of going into the red. This bank is personal and non-transferable. No one can deposit for you, but everyone can see when you have a balance. Your posture changes, your energy is different, and others notice the confidence you've built. This visible effect opens doors and creates new opportunities precisely because you've demonstrated accumulated courage. And when life demands more than you imagined, it's this balance that sustains you. Whether it's an interview, a trip, or a difficult conversation, the courage accumulated in small acts turns into credit for the big moments. You don't freeze because you know you've trained, you've faced, you've proven yourself before. Now that you understand how avoiding drains your energy and facing builds your confidence, we come to the crux of the matter. Nothing will get easier if you keep avoiding. And this is where our introduction needs to begin. Now, tell me, how long will you carry around unfinished business that only exists because you chose to postpone it? How many opportunities have passed you by because you were waiting to feel ready? What if, instead of waiting, you started today with a small step that paves the way for all the others? The decision is in your hands. You can continue to feed the debt of procrastination, or you can start depositing courage in your account today. And what will determine your future is not the size of the challenge, but your willingness to take the first step, even if you're afraid. So, if this content resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. This way, you'll ensure you don't miss future videos and will continue learning, growing stronger, and turning each small action into a real movement for change. The question is, will you watch and forget? Or will you watch and act?